California.
Man eats the flesh of another.
In this secluded town,
He steals that man's strength.
one man is about to discover
He was licking me!
the legend is real.
We need others. You, for one. I'm gonna kill him.
Ravenous.
Isn't this civilized?
Rated R.
In a world where podcasts reign supreme, two friends dare to ask, do you even movie? Hosted by filmmaker Henrique Couto and movie aficionado David D. Neuer. Spoiler alert.
Well, hello, my friends.
Greetings.
I hope you're hungry.
Yeah.
Because we have quite a show for you as we wrap up our wintry
Winter
movies.
favorites. I know.
Yeah.
How'd we get here already?
Like, you drove.
Oh, I have a license? I have a car.
Well, first of all, I never said you had a license or a car. I just said you drove here.
That's fair. That's fair.
But I'm your host, Henrique Couto, here with my good buddy and co-host, Double D, David Denoyer.
Hello,
and
everybody.
Tonight, we are talking about a film that I had the trailer etched in my brain
Yeah.
my entire childhood because the trailer was pretty scary.
Yeah, it was.
But also, it was just ad nauseum at the theater. It was on tapes that we were renting at the time. And that is, what year did this come out? Was it
1999.
1999's Ravenous.
Ravenous.
And I would call it a gem, an unrated, see, I'm doing your thing now. I stole your gig, Dave. One of our buddies, by the way, our buddy Patrick asked about last week's show.
Yeah.
Just flat out was like, did Dave have a seizure or something? Because you just started saying like, he was a real heartthrob of
slapstick.
what I was,
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, this one was definitely underrated.
Yes.
And I think we're going to really notice that. I don't remember the exact numbers of the box office, but when we get there, I know that it was painful.
Very painful. Very painful.
So, and we do want to mention this film features many acts of cannibalism.
Yes.
And you know, the funny thing is, I mean, it seems like mainstream media, like movies, TV shows, whatever, kind of do like a little bit of cannibal, then they kind of run away for a while.
Yeah.
But whenever they come back to cannibalism, they always go all the way.
Yeah.
Because, like, I feel like there was no mainstream media of cannibalism for years and years, and then we got Hannibal,
Yep.
the TV series.
Yes.
We both watched the whole thing, right? You've seen the whole thing?
I've seen it multiple times.
Man, you've watched it multiple times? I mean,
times.
it's a long series.
Three seasons.
Yeah,
three times,
seasons.
Yep.
Well, season 2 is the best, in my opinion.
Season 2 is where it
Season
catches.
3, they were told they could do whatever they want because they were getting canceled.
Yep.
Which was fun, but there were whole episodes where it took me until like the last 3 minutes to know what was going on.
To find out what was going on, yeah.
Or to figure out how it related to anything. Wasn't there a whole one on a train?
Yes, there was a whole one on a train.
And I was I was trying too. That's the worst part. That's what made me frustrated. It wasn't that they were doing weird artistic stuff.
Yeah.
What pissed me off was that I was actively watching and still confused. That was why I was mad.
That was a
I
great
wasn't like,
series.
hey, where's my,
Where's
why
my
is this-
Hannibal?
Yeah. No, I was sitting there going like, wow, I love what they're, what? So, but we talked about, you and I were watching some of the other trailers.
Yeah.
And boy, did they try a few different ways to market Ravenous.
Couple ways, yeah.
But that first trailer that I showed you right before we started, that one was the one I always saw, and it made the movie look really scary, which it is scary,
Yeah, it is.
but this film has a very interesting
Tone.
Tone is the perfect word. Yeah. A very different tone.
Yeah.
And every time I watch it, I forget that the film itself, especially in the first 2 acts, has quite a sense of humor of itself.
Very black comedy.
Yeah, it's definitely very, very like dark and creepy, but funny. Like there are these
Morbid
little gags
humor,
to it. Yeah. I mean, the fact that the opening scene is after these guys are looking at steaks, the main character he runs off, vomits, and then literally as soon as the puke leaves his mouth, Ravenous comes up on the screen.
The title, yes.
I love that.
So good.
But what an interesting choice. And that's something that I said, I really do think once the third act kicks in, the movie, and we'll talk about it in detail, but it kind of eases off of being completely out of its mind as far as its presentation style. But that first act and second act, there are just these little choices that they made.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I can't say that they hurt the film because I'd forget them because they don't fit the tone I remember.
Yeah.
But they make the film very memorable.
Well, and I think going back to the trailers again, I think the key to understanding Ravenous is that it's a horror Western, but like in the tonal shift of From Dusk Till Dawn in a little bit, because it's like you kind of start out with a paranoia story.
No, I think
it's not as hard a shift.
No, but it is a pretty hard shift because they go out into the woods.
Yeah.
And basically everything changes after they go out into the woods, which is something that even I kind of forget, is that you meet your cast of characters, then lose almost all of them before the second act even starts.
Yeah.
So I would kind of agree that in a way, From Dusk Till Dawn is in there. The only difference being that they make it very clear in Ravenous pretty early on that you're getting a cannibal story.
Yeah.
As to where in From Dusk Till Dawn, they like desperately want you to not know about the vampires.
45 minutes to an hour? Before?
It's not an hour.
Is it not an hour?
It's
okay.
right in the middle,
right
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I'm almost certain. Now, I could be wrong,
yeah,
but I doubt it.
It's at least, I want to say at least 40 minutes of that movie before they switch to the vampires. But we're not here to talk about From Dusk Till Dawn.
No. So before we get into it, one small thing I want to say is just a humongous thank you. Got a lot of really nice comments about when I talked about Chicano's passing, my rescue dog Chicano. I just want to say thanks. Thank you guys for commenting, whether it was commenting on the show or sending in a message on socials or whatever. Just thank you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
We all appreciate it.
And on that note, I have something in my eye, and oh wow, I didn't even think that was me being cute. No, I literally
have something in your eye.
Like literally something got in my eye. I hope you noticed that my tone changed to very annoyed.
Yeah.
I wasn't like, oh, I just got something. No, I mean literally something flew in my eye, was really making me mad. But so we're gonna dive headfirst into Ravenous.
Yes.
But before we do, before we dive into it, I want to ask you, Dave.
Yes, sir.
When it comes to cannibalism in movies and television, what was, if you can remember, what was your first exposure to cannibalism in the movies? Because I got to tell you right now, Davey, I'm sure I've told you this before. Cannibalism is a taboo in movies that actually gets to me quite a bit.
Yeah.
There is something I cannot stand about the idea of a person being reduced to just meat.
To meat.
It really bothers me. That's why Hannibal got to me so badly, because in Hannibal, they would like shoot it like it was the Food Network.
Yeah.
But they would be like, see this meat, it's a person. And then it would be gorgeously seasoned and beautifully arranged and fried in, oat milk and butter and all this shit. And that would like really make me want to puke.
Yeah.
If anything made me closer to trying being a vegan, which I did do it shortly after, it was actually Hannibal, because Hannibal made me like sick to my stomach.
Yeah, I could definitely see
that. So my question to you is, what was the first experience with cannibalism in media that you can recall, or that really stuck with you, or what have you?
So there's two that come to mind right off the bat. Is my mom was watching Silence of the Lambs on TV when I was a young kid.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And it was the scene where he displays the moth and everything, or the butterfly. I can't remember what it is, but anyway, he kills the two guards. And I remember just him lunging at Charles Napier's face, and that was
biting his nose.
Yeah,
which is one of the few times in that film that Hannibal Lecter is just a friggin' monster cannibal creature.
No, absolutely. Yeah. And the other instance is in my junior high library, we had a book on horror films that went up to, I want to say, about the 90s. I was actually talking to our good buddy Birdman about this on an episode that we recorded a week or so back. And it was up to the 90s, so you had everything in there from like the early 20s, 30s, and up. And the 70s, they did a piece on Raw Meat, a.k.a. Deadline, the Gary Sherman cannibal film. And they had a shot of one of the cannibalized, like, eating corpses in it. And I remember just, like, looking at the eye and, like, the teeth marks and everything. And I was like, that's so fucked up. So, like, those two that I can recall, the one that probably stuck with me the most out of any of them was There is a scene in, oh my God, what movie is it now? I'm blanking.
Baby Geniuses 2.
There's a scene in Cannibal the musical, the Trey Parker, the based
Trey
on
Parker,
Alfred
Matt Stone.
Yeah, based on Alfred Packer. The opening scene where he is just taking apart those corpses and like eating their faces, like that scene's in the movie.
It's
that's
brutal.
always stuck with me because I'm just like, that is them shooting for the fences right off the bat.
Yeah, they weren't screwing around.
No, I love Cannibal the musical.
So okay, those are interesting, and fascinatingly enough, none of my answers.
Oh, I'm all ears.
You did not tackle a single one of mine.
Okay.
So my number one cannibal experience now, and I'm not going to count zombie movies and stuff because zombies are not people.
Yeah,
they're zombies. But what was that? Cannibalism represents an inside species act. These things cannot be considered human, therefore it is not an act of cannibalism. To quote Dawn of the Dead.
Yes.
But
yes, you are.
my numero uno, and you're gonna go, was Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh,
that was the one that like I was like, whoa. And I remember being really freaked out by the concept of cannibalism, but it was played it was played down a little bit in the way that like you know, basically right at the end when they like cut her finger and let grandpa suck on it, and when they're trying to bash her head in, and when they show the barbecue the hooks, those are like the only moments that really settle in this idea that these kids are not just being killed, they're being slaughtered, and they're being slaughtered for food.
No, I remember when she rushes into the room and you just see the lampshades and all the feathers and everything. Like, that is really chilling to me, too.
I mean, very chilling, but even that doesn't necessarily scream cannibalism.
It doesn't.
See what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, I'm saying that's why it's like in that last 20 minutes is when you start to go like, but I'll tell you, and this is gonna, you're gonna be like, whoa. I'll tell you what my numero uno of childhood horror of cannibalism. The Parents.
Yeah, parents
but
would absolutely.
That was on cable.
Yeah.
And I saw that when I was probably 10 or 11.
Yeah, that would fuck you up.
And the idea, for those who don't know, Parents is a film starring Randy Quaid, and I forget who played the mom in it.
Think her name
but
either.
Parents, it's a really strange black comedy movie where cannibalism is, I would say, not even loosely it's symbolic for sex.
Yeah, no, it absolutely
the
is.
idea of sex and the idea of how children view sex, because children see sex as just a taboo.
Yeah.
A taboo that they're not supposed to have any part in, but that adults are constantly having a part in. And that's why there's this whole scene in the movie where the parents are like, you think they're like making out.
Yeah.
But then it reveals they're eating meat
together, yes.
And he's freaked out by it. But that's when I was like, wow, this is a metaphor about the forbiddenness of sex when you're a kid, and how it is kind of startling, the idea that your parents are having. Well,
I did love watching you come to that realization when I was sitting next to you while we were watching that Blu Ray.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was when I realized that it was barely subtext, that it was very clearly intention.
Yeah.
But so I remember watching that film on some cable channel, probably TBS or TNT, and being mortified. Mortified is the perfect word, literally mortified, because it's not just a movie about cannibalism, it's a movie about your own parents turning on you.
Yeah.
And
very scary.
And that's terrifying because it's, you know, another movie that brings those vibes really well, Tobey Hooper's Invaders from Mars.
Invaders from Mars, yeah.
Has that whole concept of like your parents are coming to get you.
And the stuff.
Yeah, to an extent, I would agree. But I feel like those two films like play that fear up so much because it's like that they're supposed to take care of you.
Yeah.
And you're so vulnerable if your parents don't want to take care of you.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, those were my big initial cannibal movies.
I did think of one more, which kind of relates back to what we're going to talk about, was Nicholson's speech about the Donner Party in The Shining.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
See, The Shining is 17 days long, so I forget most of it. But no, that's a good. Now I actually am in the mood to watch The Shining.
It's
now.
good.
I like the miniseries more. I don't care what people think.
Miniseries is getting re-released, by the way.
I heard
they're
that.
Proper aspect ratio.
Yeah.
But I like the miniseries, but there's just something great about Kubrick's version. But I will say, I really love Dr. Sleep. I've probably seen Dr. Sleep at least like 4 times in the last couple of years.
I've watched it twice since it came out. I liked it both times.
Oh, I love Dr. Sleep.
I watched once in the theater, and then I watched once the director's cut. Yeah. And I liked it. I liked it quite a bit.
Yeah.
But and just honorable mentions in cannibals. was very young when I first saw how old were you when you saw your first Italian cannibal movie?
I had to have been at least 15 or 16.
Really?
Yeah.
That young?
Yeah. Because at that point, I was able to get them in the house easier because I could get them from FYE because...
oh, yeah, that's true.
They would,
accessibility was higher because they were on DVD and stuff.
Cannibal Holocaust was the first one I think that we ever watched.
My first cannibal movie was probably Slave to the Cannibal God because that was it's a public domain, or at least it was considered. So it was on a DVD I could afford. But I literally, my friend and mentor, Andy Kopp, literally would not let me watch Cannibal Ferox because he had a hand in releasing it on VHS at one time. He would not let me watch it until I was at least 16.
Yeah.
So I didn't get to see like any real deal banana peel cannibal movies until I was 16, 17, but it was really hard to get them.
Yeah.
There was no DVD available. It was like my buddy who provides me with all the bootlegs of things that were hard to get back in the day was like, no.
Yeah. I could see him doing that.
It was Cannibal Ferox and his own film Mutilation Man. He would not
see those two.
Let me watch it. Close second though was Zombie Holocaust, Dr. Butcher MD, which is almost a cannibal movie, but then it becomes a zombie movie. I saw that at Horrorama when I was probably 14 or 15.
Wow.
But even those cannibal movies, for as nasty and mean-spirited as they can be, and we really have to cover one sometime on the show.
Oh, we absolutely will.
But for as nasty and mean-spirited and gross as they can be, they're so friggin' gonzo that you almost can't get sick from it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so everybody rushes somebody, grabs them, starts pulling at them, and then their body parts come apart.
Mangiati VV, it's like you have the cannibal movie, but then you also have this Jim Jones story built around it. So there's so much craziness going on in Eat Alive, aka Mangiati VV.
Yeah, Mangiati VV is aka Eat Alive, is just one of our favorites.
Yes.
And as we mentioned before, a Christmas pick.
Christmas movie.
Here at Do You Even Movie, it's a Christmas pick.
There
but
is
anyway,
Santa Claus in it.
So I just wanted to digress a little bit about cannibalism in movies because I am not a squeamish. Well, no, I'm a kind of squeamish person.
Can't be.
But I mean, I openly admit horror movies scare me.
Yeah.
I love them because I love being scared.
Yeah, I know that because I go to haunted houses with you, and it's the fucking best when you get harassed.
I can't. I react the way I feel, which is scared.
The
best
it's
is
scary.
when
They start calling your name, which has only happened like one time that I can recall when somebody got your name in the scare line, and it just worked its way through all the rooms we went through.
Yeah. I don't know how they figured out it was my name, and I don't know how they figured out how they heard it in a jumble of names similar to it.
Yeah, crazy.
But yeah, crazy, bro. But no, I like to be scared. I like scary movies for that reason. And a lot of times people will make the assumption of me that they'll be like, you must be pretty used to it. You must be pretty callous to it. And I'm like, no, man, that's why I keep watching them.
Yeah.
Is I'm very easy to scare, and I like to be scared by movies. I mean, I love movies, obviously, but I love to be scared and freaked out. But of all of the tropes, cannibalism really is the one that, like, every time I see it, it creeps me out. Like, even the silliest movie, if it does cannibalism a certain way for me, freaks me out. I'll give you an example. George A. Romero's Dead Time Stories Volume 1. Do you remember that cannibal story where they're spelunking?
Oh, the spelunking one. I was thinking of the serial killer one with Goldilocks.
No, I'm talking about when they were spelunking in the cave.
I remember that one.
And when they find the woman, they bring her out, and then she remembers eating her dead boyfriend in the cave. The way they depicted the cannibalism was they like showed her pulling meat out of like a husk that like has no humanity to it. And I, even as a 20-something-year-old watching, look, I love George Romero as much as I think anybody could. I think he was a brilliant filmmaker, a flawed human being, and I think he made some of the best movies ever made.
Absolutely.
But he made some crappy stuff too.
He did too.
And there was a period where he sure did not mind just picking up a check.
Yeah.
And nothing against the talented and tenacious independent filmmakers behind George A. Romero's Dead Time Stories either. You could tell they had very little to work with and they were trying their best. But when George sits down to be like the crypt keeper of it, he doesn't even take his jacket off. He's literally wearing an outdoors jacket. and it's just quick quips and then on to the next one. It was such, you could like hear the check being written in the background. And you could just hear a ballpoint pen scribbling. And but even that one, really
Still
messed
gets-
with me.
Yeah.
So
well, Freddy's Nightmares, for our Freddy's Nightmares fans.
Oh,
the,
yeah,
the Cabin Fever episode.
that has a
No,
really-
not Cabin Fever. It
Yeah.
was the other one. Yeah, I can't think of it. Oh shit, what was that episode
there
called?
were 2 cannibal episodes.
and now I can't think. Prime Cut.
Prime cut.
Prime
yeah.
Cut,
No, that
yeah.
bothered me.
Yeah.
No, that bothered me quite a
Well,
bit.
it was depicted pretty grisly, but
yeah, and with a laugh.
yes, also that.
Which I appreciate, but made me sick. But that's, I think, the point.
That's the tone of this movie too.
What movie? No, so without further ado, after a little talk about cannibalism, let's
Yeah.
get into 1999's Ravenous. Give us the breakdown, Double D.
1 hour and 41 minutes, rated R, for a considerable amount of gore. Where is it? Hang on. It was, God damn it, the rating killed me. It was, I hate that IMDb redid their site.
For potential buttocks display.
Considerable gore and strong violence.
Well, I mean, I like it's considerable gore.
Yeah.
And honestly, they could have went way grosser.
Yeah.
Overall, it's mostly blood splashes, and there's like 1 or 2 severed limbs
There was
that you really can see.
One thing I read relating to its censorship was there were minor cuts made to get it to an R rating, so it probably had like an NC-17 or an X at first submission, but they probably chopped like 2 or 3 seconds out of it, I would imagine.
Yeah, I just know that there really isn't that much.
There's really not. No.
I mean, compared to like your average Western or
Yeah.
something, there's a few moments where you kind of see somebody's guts.
Yeah, innards.
And that's really it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Ravenous, 1 hour, 41 minutes, rated R, directed by Antonia Bird. She did The EastEnders in 1985, Casualty in 1986, South of the Border 1988, The Men's Room in 91, A Masculine Ending in 92, Peak Practice, Priest, Mad Love, Face, Ravenous in 99, then goes to do Rehab in 2003, Mission Impossible, MI5 series in 2005.
Oh, wow. That's quite a jump.
Yeah. Cracker, one of her films in 2006, which got a series in 06 as well. A Passionate Woman in 2010. The Village, no, not the M. Night Shyamalan one.
Oh, wow.
But she unfortunately had her career cut short in 2013 by thyroid cancer, died at age 62.
Wow, that's quite a career, though. Because I got to say, full disclosure, I don't think I saw any of those except Mission Impossible 5 and Ravenous. But talk about like consistently working, and clearly Ravenous didn't kill her career, which I'm happy to hear, because while it was not successful, I think it was a very solid movie, and I think that it was a very effective film. And I think it was very artfully directed and very smartly directed. So I'm glad to hear that she got quite a bit going on, though.
And
man.
I'll get to it a little bit more in the trivia, but Robert Carlyle, who is our second lead in this film, he was very good friends with her, and he actually got her the gig on Ravenous because the original director was fired after 2 weeks.
Oh, really? Do we know who the original director was?
I have his name in the notes. It's Mitch something. Milcho Manchevsky is his name.
Milcho
Manchevsky.
Chevsky, yeah. What the heck?
Yeah, he was fired after 2 to 3 weeks.
You didn't even look him up?
No.
Didn't even bother to figure out what he was doing?
He wasn't mentioned anywhere except that trivia.
Oh, I mean, okay. This is our research person.
Oh, stop it. We got plenty to talk about. So our writer is Ted Griffin. He was the writer of Ravenous, of course, goes on to do Best Laid Plans in 99, does the screenplay for Ocean's 11, 2001, Matchstick Men, 2003, Rumor Has It in 2005, The Shield in 2006, Killers, 2010. He was the creator of the series Terriers in 2010.
Are you serious?
I am dead serious.
I love that series,
I know.
the FX series, Terriers, and I am still
upset,
livid we didn't get a second season.
I know.
Because it was so good. It ended so well with so much more to give us.
Yeah. I know. Terriers is very well missed.
Phenomenal
And you can only,
series.
and it's never been released on physical. You can only get it through, I think, Amazon is the only way to get it.
I think so. Somewhere like that. Yeah, no, I'm ticked.
So Ted Griffin also did the screenplay for Tower Heist in 2011. He's edited for script revisions on Runaway Jury in 2003, Torque in 2004, Mr. and Mrs. Smith in 2005, Fun with Dick and Jane in 2005, Night and Day in 2010, and Wolf of Wall Street in 2013.
Whoa, okay.
Also the director of Terriers, Mad Dogs, and Patriot.
He directed episodes of Terriers, Mad Dogs, and Patriot?
Yes.
Those are literally 3 of my favorite shows ever.
I know.
And they're not just 3 of my favorite. I actually feel bad for him because I'm like, those are 3 of my favorite shows that all did relatively badly.
Yeah.
But Patriot, I consider one of the best television shows ever made.
Yeah.
The Amazon original Patriot. Like, most people will be like, what? It's one of the best shows ever made.
No, it's a big deal.
And
Mad Dog's
that's crazy.
Also one that you had me watch. You texted me and you're like, dude, you need to watch the show. We only got one season of it, which was perfect. It did end on a pretty solid note.
It ended well.
But it could have gotten a second season, and it was so freaking good. So Mad Dogs
and
on...
it opened with Billy Zane playing an incredibly fun character.
Yeah. Mad Dogs on Amazon Prime, highly recommended on that one. So our cinematographer is Anthony B. Richmond. He was a claploader on From Russia with Love in 1963, The Devil Ship Pirates in 64, The Evil of Frankenstein in 1964 as well. He's the clapper loader on these films.
Well, I mean, goes to show you everybody starts somewhere.
The Gorgon in 64, Dr. Zhivago 65, Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum in 66. He becomes a cinematographer in 69 with ITV Saturday Night Theater. He does Let It Be, the Beatles film in 1970.
Okay. Wow.
Don't Look Now, the Donald Sutherland thriller in 1973.
Damn. Okay. Yeah, I could see a trajectory already starting here.
Then he goes on to do Old Dracula in 74, The Man Who Fell to Earth, a David Bowie film in 76, The Eagle Has Landed in 76 as well, The Kids Are All Right in 1979, The Who film, Nightfall, That's Life, The In Crowd, Sunset, a Blake Edwards movie, Scissors 91, The Indian Runner 91, Candyman in 92. Then he goes to do The Sandlot in 93.
He did the same DP
that did Candyman
and Ravenous.
Yeah,
did Sandlot.
Tales from the Hood in 1995.
Really?
First Kid in 1996, the Sinbad movie.
Don't talk to me like you need to tell me what First Kid is, you little shit. I'm telling you what First Kid was.
I was always partial to House Guest.
The last time I watched First Kid, House Guest is great actually. Yeah. Last time I watched First Kid, girl I was dating at the time had horrible stomach flu. And I just remember I watched it while I waited for Chinese food to come while she was in the other room sleeping in between vomiting. First Kid's really fun.
Gets better. Playing God in 97, the David Duchovny film, which I watched a while back and it didn't hold up as well, but still a fun crime thriller. So then he does Ravenous in 99, Cherry Falls in 99.
Okay.
Men of Honor in 2000, Legally Blonde 2001, Shade 2003, the Sylvester Stallone poker movie I showed you with Gabriel Byrne and everybody.
I love Shade. Shade's really good.
Cinderella Story 2004, Just Friends 2005, Employee of the Month 2006, Miss March 2009, Alvin and the Chipmunks, The Squeakquel in 2009.
Thank God, finally a classic.
And he does 3 Diary of the Wimpy Kids movies, and he also just did The Beatles Get Back, the Peter Jackson Disney Plus Beatles special.
I love the Diary of a Wimpy Kid movies too. Wow, these are some great ones.
So Anthony B. Richmond, we salute you because that's a hell of a resume,
brother.
Sir.
I mean, and that's something we mention here on the show is cinematographers. Every film, and I've said it again and again, but every film needs somebody to shoot it. Cinematographers get around. Never assume you know where a cinematographer came from or where they're going.
Yeah.
Because there are so many stories. Or I mean, he was a claploader on what was one of the like
From
really
Russia with
ones?
Love. And
no, but I'm talking about like the Devil Ship Pirates and The Evil of Frankenstein.
The
Gorgon. All of those are perfectly fine movies, and if you love them, that's fine.
Yeah.
But they're all like, he was just the claploader.
Yeah.
And then he went on to be clearly a sought-after cinematographer.
Yeah, I would say so.
Who shot literally multiple movies that were formative for me, that were nothing alike, by the way.
None.
It's Ravenous, Sandlot, what was the other
Candyman.
one? Candyman. It's like all of those movies were formative to me as a kid for completely different reasons.
Yeah, no
so,
shit.
Yeah, for real. That is an incredible story of a cinematographer right there.
So getting into the story of Ravenous, this is from the back of the Scream Factory Blu Ray. It says, a recipe for nonstop action and excitement when the inhabitants of an isolated military outpost go up against a marauding band of cannibals in a deadly struggle for survival. Ever watchful of the enemies who might literally tear them apart, the uneasy alliance of soldiers must fight brutal elements of the Sierra Nevada wilderness and as well as their own murderous instincts to stay alive.
Okay.
It's not correct at all.
There are problems.
Yeah.
So, first of all, that description sounds like the description you would give because you know that the person you want to watch it would not you couldn't get across what actually happens in the movie.
Yeah.
Like you're just trying to get them to watch it because you're like, no, you'll like it if you watch it, but like, because it's not that.
It's not that at all.
I mean, I could see interpreting it as that,
yeah,
but it's not an army fighting. It's infighting, and and of course the cannibal element is such a massive part of the movie.
Yeah,
and the whole concept of the Wendigo and all this stuff, which we'll get into in a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's a bizarre breakdown. It just sounds like they're trying to hard sell somebody who does not want to watch Ravenous at all.
So
you made your own?
My synopsis.
Now, is your synopsis just He was licking me! Because
Should have been.
that's what we all, from my generation,
Remember.
That's what we remember.
Yeah.
The scene where the guy yells, he was licking me! So, but anyway, sorry. So I want to hear your synopsis.
My synopsis: the inhabitants of military outpost Fort Spencer have more than winter weather to be concerned about when a sadistic cannibal infiltrates one night with plans to never go hungry again.
Okay. Points for clever. Points for clever. But hold on. But
Yeah.
what was that first sentence?
The inhabitants of a military outpost Fort Spencer.
Have more than the winter weather to be concerned about. That's you being cheeky. That's you being a little bit of a shit. Like, no, they have more than winter weather to worry about. They're being infected by a blight that makes them eat each other. but I have to give it to you.
Okay.
On the when a sadistic cannibal infiltrates one night with plans to never go hungry again.
Yeah.
That was
Oh.
no, that was good.
All right.
That was good.
I will take
A little
this.
cheeky though. I might not allow that next time, but that was good, Dave. Good job.
Thank you, sir. So wrapping us up as our cast, we have Guy Pearce, who plays Captain John Boyd. 90 credits on his resume. Guy Pearce is one of those names that, like, I know of him because of movies that I love him in, but for the most part, you really don't see him doing much except for, like, the last 10 years, I would say. He's kind of popped up, like in Blacklight, that Liam Neeson movie.
No, I think he's definitely a workhorse.
Yeah, so 90 credits on his resume. Heaven Tonight was his first one in 1989. He did Home and Away in 91. The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert in 94. Dating the Enemy in 96. Does LA Confidential in 1997, which, dear listener, if you have not seen LA Confidential, I just showed it to Enrique.
I just saw it recently,
Yes.
yeah, and I really liked it.
Yes.
And shout out to our buddy Maurice, and
Yes.
shout out to Specs McGee. That is an inside joke. Move along with your lives.
So The Devil Game in 97, Ravenous in 99, then does Rules of Engagement in 2000, Memento in 2000, Count of Monte Cristo 02, The Time Machine in 2002, Two Brothers in 04, does The Proposition, which is a really good dark western he did with Nick Cave and the guy that plays the head vampire in 30 Days a Night. I can't think of his name, but really, really good movie. Factory Girl in 2006, he portrays Warhol. He does an Andy Warhol and does really well.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I would like to see that.
Yeah. Traitor 2008, The Hurt Locker in 08, The Road, The King's Speech, Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, Seeking Justice, Lockout, Prometheus, Lawless, Iron Man 3, The Rover, Equals, Brimstone, Spinning Man, A Christmas Carol from 2019, Bloodshot in 2020, and then Memory in 2022. So it wasn't Blacklight, it was Memory.
Oh, okay, Memory.
Those two confused because they came out the same time.
Because
basically.
David is a lazy researcher.
I just remember Memory was better than Blacklight. if I remember
Wow.
correctly.
Harsh.
You were with me, and we both agreed on that.
Wait, what was Memory?
Memory was where he's the assassin that loses his memory.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and Blacklight's where one of his buddies gets taken out, so he decides to go back into CIA, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I liked Blacklight actually kind of more.
Wait, maybe it was Blacklight we liked.
I don't
more.
know. Maybe I like Blacklight more than.
So then Robert Carlyle is our second lead. He plays Colonel Ives as well as Calhoun in this. He was in Arena in 1975, Taggart in 90, Riff Raff in 91, does The Advocates in 92, Being Human in 94, does Priest is where he meets Antonia Bird in 94 as well, Cracker in 94, another one of her films, Trainspotting in 96, Carla's Song in 96, The Full Monty in 97, probably one of his most known movies. Next to his appearance on the series of Once Upon a Time, which we'll get to in a second. Does The World's Not Enough in 99, Angela's Ashes, The Beach, To End All Wars, Formula 51, Hitler, The Rise of Evil in 2003, The Mighty Celt, Aragon, 28 Weeks Later, Redemption, The Tournament, which I need to show you the tournament because it's literally about a small town that becomes the location for this game of assassins that like big heads are bidding on. There's money, and Carlyle plays a priest who's sworn off violence.
That sounds fun to me.
Yeah,
that sounds like a good time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Stargate Universe in 09, Once Upon a Time in 2011, Trainspotting 2 in 2017, Yesterday, and Cobra in 2020. Robert Carlyle is one of those faces that like you've seen him in things, but you don't know what it is precisely because his resume is a bit all over the place.
I mean, hey, there are worse things to be than everywhere.
And wrapping us up is Neal McDonough. He plays Private Reich in this. 136 credits on his resume, by the way.
Wait, your third person is Neal McDonough?
Yeah.
What? No love for Jeffrey Jones?
I didn't give Jeffrey Jones. Jeffrey Jones in this. We'll get to him.
What, Dave? Why don't you want to talk about how great Jeffrey Jones is?
So he does Darkman in 1990.
What? No. What? No love for Jeffrey Jones?
I love Jeffrey Jones, but
you do?
But I love Jeffrey Jones' work.
Oh, really?
Can we move on?
Jeffrey Jones
has allegations.
You can find out.
Yeah. Moving on.
It's not like this is going to be the first time somebody has allegations.
Yeah.
Look at Dave. He's verklempt. He's like completely vetched now. I don't know why I'm all Yiddish now.
I don't know either.
But look at David. Fix your hat. Oh, we worry about you, Bubby. Why don't you take a drink and I'll tell a joke to the audience. Let me tell you why the first time David told me he was hiding Jeffrey Jones in his home from the authorities.
You're fucking funny.
No, it's all right, Dave. I'm sorry. Dave was... The amount of Jeffrey Jones jokes I made during the actual film that we were watching.
He is not wrong.
I knew that Dave was just... and the reason Dave was flinching is he was just afraid I was going to throw like a really mean one at him.
You could have.
I'm trying not to do that to you on this show.
I appreciate that. So Neal McDonough, 136 credits, starting with Darkman in 1990. He plays a dock worker in Darkman. Quantum Leap in 91. Cruel Doubt in 92. In the Line of Duty, Ambush in Waco, which I actually just watched today.
Really?
Yeah, that was the one I was sending you guys screen grabs of with Neal McDonough's hair.
Oh, yeah. He's just young and weird looking.
He does Duckman in 94, Angels in the Outfield 94, Jag in 95, Three Wishes, One Man's Justice in 96.
The ultimate bro movie of us.
You ever wanted to see MC Hammer suffocate a guy with a bag? One Man's Justice.
Or just hang out outside in East LA.
That is true too, yes. Star Trek First Contact in 96, Fire Down Below 97, does the Incredible Hulk cartoon in 97, Ravenous in 99, then he does Balloon Farm, Martial Law, Band of Brothers, The X-Files, Minority Report, Timeline, Walking Tall remake, Medical Investigation, The Guardian, Flags of Our Fathers, The Hitcher, I Know Who Killed Me, Tin Man, Desperate Housewives, Terriers, which I forgot he was on Terriers until I looked him up.
Oh, you forgot that?
Yeah.
Oh, very memorable on Terriers.
Yeah. Little Birds in 2011, Captain America 2011, Justified, one of his best appearances in the last decade.
I would agree, although it plays to kind of his typecast.
Yeah, it does.
But we have another Justified alumni in the cast as well.
We do, Jeremy Davies.
I think they're both worth mentioning.
Yeah, CSI, Red 2, Bad Country, Arrow, Yellowstone, Suits, The 100, American Horror Story, Resident Evil, Welcome to Raccoon City, The Flash, The Shift.
Oh, yeah, he was in Welcome to Raccoon City.
The dude's resume doesn't end. I mean, he is a working actor, 100%.
Well, he's got a forehead that just scares you.
He's also got a family he's got to feed.
I mean, that helps too.
He's also a producer.
But I don't know if they're
too.
his or if he abducted them by the characters he gets to play.
Yeah, he's also a producer now too. He's producing a lot of movies. One of his most famous ones was a Western he did recently where he starred in called Boone.
Boone.
Mm-hmm. Boon.
Okay.
So what was your first time seeing Ravenous?
Oh, gosh. It would have been, I guarantee I rented it on VHS, because if it came out in 99, that means it was on tape in 2000. Mm-hmm. And in my household, I was the first DVD player owner.
Yeah, I remember your story.
Oh, yeah. Did I tell it on the show? I can't remember.
You haven't. I don't think so.
Yeah, I come from humble beginnings. My mother did a very good job making sure we had what we needed. And I was a huge movie fan, so getting a DVD player was not a priority. But because I was such a big movie fan, my mom was open to it, to getting me one eventually, someday.
Yeah.
Well, I figured out a really good compromise. I was like, what if we get a DVD drive for my PC? Because I had a PC in my room that I did a bunch of stuff on. I'm like 13 or 14, I think.
Damn.
Maybe a little younger, maybe a little older. And I was like, what if I get the drive? Because then for this is how things were. Then if I have the drive for $15, I can get a DVD player.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't just have the drive. You had to have a player.
Yeah.
So I got the player for Christmas and I got the drive for my birthday. And the first time I watched any DVDs, it was on my computer, not on my TV. I wouldn't have a DVD player in my bedroom or one in the living room until about a year later, when Christmas finally hit with those Apex DVD players that were like $36.
Yeah.
So when we rented a movie for family night, especially, or we just rented like a brand new Blockbuster movie or whatever, so that we could all watch it together. Mm-hmm. All mom and me and maybe my sister, we'd always go tape.
Yeah.
Because we had a VCR in the living room.
Makes sense.
And I had a VCR in my bedroom too, so I didn't mind renting tapes. So, but yeah, I remember one of the first big things I ever watched on that computer was I watched all 3 Sleepaway Camps.
Yes, you did.
Because I had never seen them.
Yeah.
And then Fangoria gave like crazy reviews to the box set. So, and it was only $35.
Man, I remember that box set.
You don't remember it coming out though?
No, I don't. But I remember that was a hunted for box set because that just the
I had the
survival
cross
kit
on it.
and
Yep.
the cross. Yeah,
which got banned.
Got banned because
the Red Cross actually
tried to
owns
sue.
that.
Yeah.
But I just remember I sat down, and that was the best Saturday ever because I watched the first Sleepaway Camp, and when it was over, I was just like, "Whoa." And then I watched the other two and fell in love with all three.
Yeah, no, that would be the turning point.
So I never had a life where I either didn't know Sleepaway Camp or I had 1, 2, and 3 back to back.
That's fair. What about 4? Didn't 4 get included in that one?
You mean The Survivor?
The Survivor.
We're not talking about Return to Sleepaway Camp. You know why we're not talking about that?
No, I don't want to talk about Return to Sleepaway Camp at all.
Good.
I'm talking about The Survivor.
Oh, you are talking about this.
Yes.
Well, it was just raw footage
from
a sequel that never got filmed, which was exclusive to Best Buy.
Yes, it was.
A sequel that never got completed. They raised enough money to shoot like 3 or 4 rolls of film in one weekend with an actress and an actor, and that was it.
It's bad.
Yeah, and people were so confused. I remember being confused even because I was a young man, even though I had dreams of being a filmmaker. I had not seen unedited footage from film. So I was like, okay, I'm watching her walk silent through the woods. And now a color flash just happened. Now she's sitting on a chair.
Yep.
Yeah,
it's bad.
Yeah. Well, the real problem is some filmmakers, I was going to say audacious. I think that's a good word. Some audacious filmmakers decided to try to make a full movie out of it.
Yeah.
But the problem is when you edit together that 45 minutes of footage, it's really like 6 minutes of movie tops.
Yeah.
So,
because isn't there a version
clip
out there that has other clips and stuff?
No, that's all. That's what it is.
Okay,
it's a whole thing where they claim like that they have the right to do it, but they don't really. But I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not here to lawyer. I'm here to eat. So go on, Davey.
So you were saying that you rented this?
Yeah. Sorry, I forgot the question you asked. Yes, I rented it on tape and watched it, and my mom was super grossed out.
Mm-hmm.
She kind of checked out of it.
I could see that.
She might have even went off and did something else. I can't remember for sure. But I and my older sister, who was much older than me, we both were enamored with it. My sister really liked it, and I thought it was pretty cool, but I was really super grossed out.
Mm-hmm.
And I found the ending showdowns super scary.
Satisfying and scary.
So
yeah.
I don't know about satisfying. I mean, I wasn't quite old enough for that, unlike you, Davey. But what about you? When did you first see it?
So I think I mentioned on the show before that I was a frequent flea market shopper with my father on Sundays, and in doing so, that's how I kind of started getting my VHS collection.
Yeah, we get it. You have a father.
Yeah, well, shut up. But so one of my tapes had a trailer for Ravenous on it, which was that trailer I showed you, which has
so cheesy.
I'm Your Boogeyman by Rob Zombie.
Yeah,
on it.
what a weird. No, I get it though. Like
or White Zombie, actually.
I can appreciate. I think it was White Zombie.
Yeah.
I can appreciate what they were going for with that trailer because they were trying to hit a different audience since it didn't find its audience the first time.
Yeah,
they were like, "What if we make this look just fun and badass and weird?" But boy, is that a weird trailer for it.
Keep in mind that Disney's Planes, that movie, the original trailer, the score on that trailer was more human than a human.
Oh, yeah, I believe that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that they were on Disney's record label, David.
It wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, that
I'm almost certain
sense.
White Zombie was on Disney's record label at the time.
But anyway, so I saw a trailer for Ravenous, and I went to the flea market so often, I was like, well, I'll absolutely come into it soon. And sure enough, got a copy of it, watched it, and just immediately fell in love with its zaniness and its disgusting concept and all that stuff. And just, this was a movie that like a 14-year-old would latch onto, and I did. I mean,
I feel like maybe not the average 14-year-old. It has some pretty heavy concepts. And
it
stuff,
does, and the trailer made it look more action-packed than it is.
Okay, I think you can admit this. Was it because the guys in the movie were cool?
Oh yeah.
Okay, no, that's fine. I'm not trying to pick on you.
Yeah,
that's just a thing
100%.
with teenage boys.
Yeah,
is like every dude in that movie was like super cool and like rugged and tough.
And to be perfectly honest, I think this was probably the point in my life that I had my VHS LA Confidential, which I would watch. Not even understating, probably once a month. So I was into Guy Pearce at that point too. So the fact that he was in a horror film, I was like, fuck yeah.
And how old were you again?
14.
14?
Yeah.
So probably a little old for Jeffrey Jones to be happy you were watching.
Yeah, I mean, there is that. There is that.
I'm so proud of myself. Okay.
But
okay.
no, I mean this has become a winter favorite of mine because it is snowy out the ass, and you have you just have this again the sense of isolation that's in this movie is what's most terrifying to me.
Isolation. I see what I did there. Sorry.
But yeah, no, I revisit this every winter, so it was an absolute pleasure to bring this to the show because I love this fucking movie.
Yeah, no, it's a really fun one and one that I've really enjoyed revisiting.
Yeah.
I'm so glad it got a nice Blu Ray release.
Then that kind of put it back onto people's sites, I think, too, because I remember how excited I was when they announced this. So, are you ready to get into it?
Into what?
The movie. Let's all go to the lobby.
That's about not going to the movie, but all right, fine. What the hell? I'm in.
So we open with a shot of an American flag as we see Boyd, who is being accommodated for getting a hold of enemy lines. He's secured a station, and he's flashing back to the events, and we see that all his men around him are dying in battle.
His flashbacks are bloody, even by war flashback standards.
Absolutely.
Like, it's friggin' wet with blood. Like, and that's kind of the imagery they're selling right now is not just dead bodies, not just bloody bodies. Everything is soaking in blood. Like, it makes it to the point where you can almost smell his flashbacks because I really want to sell it properly. Wet with blood.
Wet is a good point.
Yeah, no, it's like soaking, drenched, sticky with blood.
Yeah.
And I love this sequence because after the accommodation, what do they do to the men to show them they care? They serve them all steak.
Nice steak dinner.
And I love that the plates are just a steak too big for the plate.
Yep.
No vegetables.
No vegetables.
And a pile of bread in the middle of the table people could pass around.
Yep.
So it's all about that steak, which honestly, I mean, if you think about the era and what those guys have been through, they probably hadn't had a steak in forever.
Well, that's why they're all chomping down on it.
And also to make us even sicker. Because now we're looking at these nasty, bloody steaks.
Very rare.
I mean, a lot of this was rare.
Yeah.
But and as they're chomping down, our main character is just
mortified.
Because all it does is remind him of those moist memories.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, will be the name of your autobiography.
So he's visually repulsed. We see him go throw up, and as Enrique said, that's when we get the credit. Ravenous.
He literally, and then Ravenous.
So we hear his captain, General Slauson, who is telling him that he's going to be sent to Fort Spencer in California.
Because he hates him.
Yeah, because he hates him, because we'll find out in a little bit that he's not the hero that we're supposed to believe.
I mean, he's a hero, but he kind of tripped into it after being a coward.
Yeah. So he travels to the fort, and that's our credits, and we're seeing beautiful range of the Sierra Nevadas, and just there's snow falling, and we see him trekking. He gets to the fort and meets Martha there, who shows him his quarters, and we flash back once again to Boyd, and he is watching his men be slaughtered. He's seeing everybody just sink to the ground covered in blood, so then he just cowers down and goes into the mud as well. We find out that they buried the bodies of his comrades on top of him. He hid in the bodies, snuck out, and that's how he took the enemy outpost.
He basically faked he was dead.
Yeah.
And laid for hours and hours in a pile of his dead comrades until he could sneak out.
And that's why he sent this to Fort Spencer, is because they're like, we could shoot you, but since you took the enemy outpost, like, it puts a bad taste in people's mouth.
He's technically a war hero.
Yeah.
It's just by way of cowardice.
Yeah. So then we meet Colonel Hart, who's played by Jeffrey Jones, and he goes over the company and what Fort Spencer is. It's a way station on the way to the Nevadas, and they don't get much traffic in the winter when the storms and everything sweep in. There's Toffler, there's George, Cleves, Knox, who is the general and doctor, Martha, and that is our posse of Fort Spencer.
And you makes 8. That's the way he says it, which I feel was a reference to Agatha Christie and 10 Little Indians.
Oh, yeah. Then there were none. Ooh,
and you makes 8. That I have not read 10 Little Indians. Isn't it also called Twist of the Screw? Not Twist of the Screw.
No, not that one. There's it's 10 Little Indians, and then there was, and then there were none. It was the retitling of it.
Yeah, because 10 Little Indians isn't the most a respectful title.
There's the other title.
Well, but so. But I felt like that was a reference to that. I could be overlooking into things, but it really did feel like it. And I love, for context, as Jeffrey Jones is talking about
them,
he's eating walnuts.
Yes.
So he's got a mouthful of food.
Yeah.
As he's talking the whole time, he's eating and eating and eating. And then how do we transition out of the scene? By him saying, like, so-and-so's the cook.
Yeah.
I would recommend not eating, but most have to.
Yeah.
But most men have to.
And going over our posse, so Toffler is played by Jeremy Davies. He played Charles Manson in the 2003 Helter Skelter. He's also Dickie on Justified.
Yeah.
We also have George, who is played by Joseph Running Fox. Cleves, David Arquette.
Yes, and Arquette, honestly, very well used in this, because he's kind of just the goofball guy.
Yeah.
But when he has to be dramatic, he does a really great job.
Yeah, and then Major Knox is played by Steven Spinella, and Martha is played by Sheila Tousey. Great cast of actors in this. The supporting cast of this film makes it all the more fun that it is, too.
Oh, everybody in it is on their game.
Yeah. So Boyd flashes back, and we see everything happen as it unfolds with him being buried under his dead. He climbs out, takes the station, and that's when you find out that his promotion was completely an insult to him, because they're like, we're going to shoot you or we can send you here. So they get him completely out of the hair. Later that night, Hart asks Boyd if he wants to join him because Knox has just nodded off, drunk and passed out, and he's like, he's got some excellent bourbon.
Yeah, and he's like, do you think he'll mind? He's like, I don't know.
So then that night, as they're drinking, a stranger appears outside the window, a lonely traveler who's near death from frostbite. So they take him in and bathe him, and that's when we meet Calhoun. And so they have assigned Toffer to watch over him. The next morning, Calhoun wakes up, and he asks where he is, and he nearly breaks down when he finds out that he's north of the Nevadas. And he is freaking out, and he's like, where Hart asks him, how long have you been out there? He's like, 3 months, and he's like, without food? And he goes, yeah. But then he goes, ask him again, and he's like, well, he said, I said there wasn't food. I didn't say we had anything to eat.
I didn't say we had nothing to eat.
Yes.
I said we had no food, which I think is a really great way to kind of bring this about.
Yeah.
That moment. I said there was no food, not that there was nothing to eat.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So then we get the story that Calhoun was part of a wagon train of 6, and their guide, Colonel Ives, had an idea for a route that was off the trail that would get them quicker through the Sierras. So the guide claimed to know a shorter route, but unfortunately winter hits before they reach the Nevadas, and they have to go into a cave because that's the only way of shelter they have at this point.
Yeah, which, I mean, a cave is a good enough shelter if you're not starving to death.
So they go into the cave, and they shortly run out of food. They eat the oxes, they eat the horses, they eat the chickens, and then they start eating their belts and their shoes, but the hunger still persists.
And yet we persist.
So they remain famished and unfortunately have to turn to cannibalism, which they do so by one of their own dying of malnourishment. Calhoun says that he wasn't for the idea, but walking back into the cave and finding out that they were cooking his legs and the smell of it, he smiled at the smell of meat, is what he says.
Yeah, and when we find out Calhoun, what his real deal is, it's fascinating that he's telling the story because spoiler alert. Where's the
spoiler alert?
His story is a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
Why even confess to cannibalism?
Yeah.
If you're gonna just tell everybody, or you're just gonna, I don't know. I thought it was really interesting. It was like he's fucking with them.
The way he spins it though is what gets him out there, and that's the genius move on his part.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
So things get out of hand, and they decide that they're going to keep going with the killing, and that's when Calhoun starts to notice the party starts going. One goes, another goes, and then it's just him, Ives, and McCready's wife, and McCready was one of the people left over. So Calhoun decides to flee for his life because he knows that he's going to die if he stays there, and that's when he has wound up now at Fort Spencer.
Yes, and they've managed to warm him up. He seems oddly well.
Yeah.
He's only a little skinny.
Yeah.
Which they mentioned immediately.
Yeah.
And then he immediately says, like, you should have seen me before. I was 30 pounds heavier and all this stuff. So now, of course, Jeffrey Jones' character,
Colonel Hart. He hears of this and he's like, "Well, we got to
go find them." And they're all like, "Are you crazy?"
Yeah,
and he's like, "It's our job."
Yeah, it's our job. We got to go out there, and that's when George pulls his attention aside and tells him the myth of the Wendigo. Which, Enrique, would you like to take this?
The Wendigo. Oh man, well, I've covered this a lot on my show Weekly Spooky. And the Wendigo is an old Native American legend, mostly Algonquin and Obajeway. Sorry if I'm saying that a little harsh or wrong, but mostly around where we're from, the Ohios, Indiana, places like that. And it's basically the story of hunger and desperation in the winter leading people to cannibalism. And then once they consume a human being, they consume human flesh, they get inherited by a spirit known as the Wendigo. And the Wendigo, in this movie, it's simplified, but the Wendigo references a need for more, gluttony, it represents a selfishness that takes over your soul and makes you hungry for more. And basically, long and the short, once you've eaten human flesh, you can never stop eating human flesh.
Yeah.
Nothing will sate your hunger. Not even really the human flesh will.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. A lot of the Wendigo stories say that the more you eat, the thinner you get. And you just keep going and going until eventually you'd go mad and die of hunger. And that's the thing is you basically either kill your fellow man or you starve to death. And there's no other choice.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think that the Wendigo myth was about properly, properly demonizing cannibalism in the native world at that time. Because a lot of people had risked or potentially committed cannibalism because the winters were so harsh.
Yeah.
I mean, so brutal. I mean, this is beyond, they were natives and they didn't know any, they knew how to live.
Yeah.
And they knew when they were going to die in those weather situations. So that was kind of the concept, was that it was like, there was this idea to make it an ultimate taboo to where it was like, no, if you eat human flesh, you'll be cursed.
Yeah.
Not just, sad about it.
Yeah.
So, and obviously human flesh eating, as we've been talking about, has been a taboo for a very long time.
Yeah.
In nearly every culture, there's references to cannibalism and things like that. But it is interesting that they bring up the Wendigo, because when the movie started and I realized that they were out near California, I was like, well, there aren't a lot of believers in the Wendigo out there.
Yeah.
They mentioned that it's from up north, but really it'd be far east. Of course, like the Midwest, basically, of America, like Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, places like that.
Yeah.
I always joke when I go on my trips up to northern Michigan and I'm like way up in the middle of nowhere in the dead snow. I always joke that I'm just like, I just stop driving once I hear the Wendigo scream. That's when I know I'm in the right place. I'm always going where the Wendigo lives to hang out. And I always say, if I ever saw that Wendigo, I'd kiss him on the mouth. So anyway, so that's basically the Wendigo legend. Now, there are a lot of variations and stuff like that. But basically, if you eat a person, it'll make you feel amazing and powerful, but it'll make you greedy and gluttonous for more.
Yeah.
And often it's of everything, not just human flesh, but power and strength and women and money and everything.
Yeah. So this version, he says, eating the flesh of another man gives the man his strength that he consumes and he wants more. So Hart asks George, he's like, well, that doesn't happen anymore, does it? And he goes, well, people break the bread of Christ every Sunday. And he's like, oh.
Yeah, I do love that. Yeah, he points out, he's like, actually, I mean, Jesus has a cannibal element to it.
So Colonel Hart, Toffler, Boyd, Reich, George, and Calhoun set out for the cave, and we see them trekking through the Nevadas. They stop for a night for camp. They're continuing the next morning, trekking through the hills, and at one point, Hart, they're on top of a peak, and he's like, all right, bourbon break. So they stop and sip some bourbon, and Boyd takes the opportunity to ask Calhoun about the effects of consuming flesh. Did he feel anything different? It's like, oh yeah, I heard that legend. He's like, I guess you could say that I felt like a little revitalized, after the first taste. You could say that.
But you wouldn't be freaked out by hearing that, because when you're starving, any food in your stomach would make you feel amazing.
Yeah.
It really would. Gosh, any time, have you ever eaten like just a fine meal, but you were starving?
Oh yeah.
If you're starving, a brick of ramen noodles is good. You're gonna be like, oh man,
yeah,
it's so good. That was one thing I learned doing a lot of intermittent fasting. I would do like a 72-hour fast. Whatever you eat,
it was delicious.
It could be plain kale, and you would be like,
brown rice.
Oh, it's so good.
Brown rice.
Plain corn would taste sweet as candy.
Oh.
So it amplifies your taste buds and stuff. Of course, I did not eat human flesh after my.
No, you did not.
No, not yet.
So he takes the opportunity to ask Calhoun. Calhoun says it revitalized him. Up on the top of the hill, Toffler finds a bone, but he's not paying attention, and he suddenly falls down the backside, rolling on some rocks, and gets stabbed in the side by some jagged rocks. So Toffler is off for a little bit. We see him being bandaged by Reich later in a tent, and he's also requesting bourbon, which I love, because first he shouts, bourbon, nobody moves. Bourbon!
Yeah, I love that. Bourbon!
So he's being bandaged by Reich, and Reich takes notice that Boyd is uneasy when he sees blood. Later that night, Toffler wakes up screaming as the tent is illuminated to reveal that Calhoun was licking his wounds and his mouth actually has blood caked around it.
He doesn't even hide it.
No.
Because once he's called out for it, he's just like, please, like, tie me up or something, because I couldn't resist.
Yeah.
And that's where we get that legendary, he was licking me, which is just one of the top moments of the whole film.
Yeah, so Calhoun is bound, and he's in Reich's hands as they're leading him on a little rope across the rest of the trip, and they get to the cave, and that's when you see Calhoun start to freak out. He's approaching it, and he's just getting nervous and begging them to go back.
Yeah, and the way the one guy describes it is he says he's spooked, which is how you describe animals, usually.
Yeah.
He's just shaking and panicked and afraid.
Yeah. So the group stations outside the cave as Hart calls to Mrs. McCready and Colonel Ives. No answer, so he sends Boyd and Reich in to investigate. Inside the cave, a discovery is made that it's 5 bodies instead of 4, meaning that Calhoun is the killer, killed Ives and all of them. And outside Calhoun, we see is digging up a knife. Toffler, noticing this, is calling to him, and that's when Hart comes over. He's like, he's spooked. He goes to the cave as Reich and Boyd are calling to him. They're like, kill Calhoun. He's a traitor. He's not telling the truth.
He's a murderer.
And just as he starts to hear it, Calhoun sneaks up, stabs Hart right in the gut, and takes the knife and brings it right up, slicing him.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Very brutal.
And the beginning of many moments of brutality.
Yeah. So George has seen this happen. He's up on a ridge, and he goes to hit Calhoun with an axe, but Calhoun spins Hart's body around as he takes the axe. He takes Hart's pistol off him, shoots George dead. So now it's just Toffler and Calhoun, and of course Toffler's freaking out. And hilariously, Calhoun goes up to him. He's walking up with the knife, and Toffler's just frozen. He's like, run.
Yeah, run.
And so Toffler goes off screaming up the other side of the stream. That's when we have Boyd and Reich reach the cave, and they are trying to find Toffler, who's screaming, and they go over to the side. They're calling for him. Calhoun's laughing hysterically. Suddenly they find Toffler, and he has been completely gutted.
Yeah. And it's important to point out Calhoun's mentality has changed entirely. Now he is playful and insane.
Yeah.
Before, he was fearful, and he had like a secret maybe, but he was not a nut job.
Well,
now he is just going full like Hannibal Lecter.
And before he does the thing with run, I forgot he goes to shoot Toffler because he has the pistol still, and he goes and he clicks
it doesn't go off, and
he goes, "That's so annoying."
Yeah. No, he has a lot of choice moments as a just total nutter.
Yeah. So Reich is trailing behind him. They get to the side of the cliff. Reich fires a shot, but he misses him, and then he suddenly vanishes. So Reich goes over to the cliff. Boyd follows him, and suddenly Calhoun drops down from some trees, throwing a knife at Reich, which takes him over the side of the cliff. And now it's just Boyd and Calhoun face to face.
Yeah, and it is a terrifying moment.
Terrifying.
There's something about a human being like him.
Yeah.
Knowing that he is hungry for your flesh.
Yeah.
That is truly mortifying.
So Boyd fires his rifle, dropping Calhoun to the ground, but he shortly sits up and he's laughing, and he's now cornered Boyd to the edge of the cliff. So Boyd has no choice, and he just doubles back and jumps over the side of the cliff, falling down.
Yeah, he pulls a John Rambo.
Yes.
He just jumps onto the tree and hopes that the branches will slow his fall enough that maybe he'll live.
He'll live, yeah.
But it gets pretty ugly as he falls down the tree and realizes his comrade is also in that tree. And he ends up taking him with him.
They go
further
rolling
and
down the
further
hill,
down,
yeah.
And then they end up falling into some kind of a hole in the ground.
Yeah.
And it's talk about a mortifying. I know I keep saying mortifying. This movie is mortifying.
It's mortifying.
As his buddy was, the other guy, who they were not big friends.
Not big friends.
Is hanging upside down, and he's sitting there trying to figure out what happened and where they landed. He's just choking out blood and choking out. Well, no, he's choking out blood first.
And laughing, yeah.
And then you realize he's alive.
Yeah.
He's not. I don't think he's laughing. I think he's just dying.
He's smiling, but it's just
I don't think he's smiling. I think he's just upside down.
That might be.
I'm my personal opinion. I think he's just upside down.
But yeah,
and
he goes to choke him,
but then he starts strangling him. Yeah.
And then he falls. The choking stops, and then it's just him in the hole with him. So now Calhoun starts making his trek down the mountain looking for them, and since they're covered in this hole, Calhoun doesn't find them. So then we see Calhoun just having a barbecue as he's dragging other bodies into the cave.
Yep. And as I commented immediately, I was like, look at that. No smartphones, just people in the moment. But so now our main character is stuck in a situation where he's horribly injured.
Yep.
He's stuck in that hole.
Yeah.
He's freezing and starving. And he knows, because the Wendigo is real.
Yeah.
That if he eats that flesh,
he will get his strength.
He will get not just his strength, but he'll heal.
Yeah, he'll heal.
He'll completely be back to it. And this guy that died with him was a tough Mother Hubbard.
Yes, he was.
So eating his flesh would bring you up, you know? So eventually he
gives
begrudgingly
in.
makes that choice,
Gives in.
mainly because he just wants out of that hole.
Yeah.
And to potentially stop Calhoun.
Yeah, and while this is happening, we also see Cleves and Martha have arrived back at Fort Spencer, and they're on the lookout for them. We see them doing about their test, but they keep looking towards the hills, waiting for them to come back.
Yeah.
So Boyd wakes up the next morning and begins his trek back to Fort Spencer alone. He's trekking through the hills and the snow and makes it back. He goes to ask Martha as soon as he's back about the Wendigo and how to stop it, and Martha tells him there is no stopping it.
Yeah, there ain't no stopping. There are no legends where you can stop a Wendigo once you become one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's over.
So he's also called on General Slauson to send him to the cave to find the bodies and inspect and everything, and he's basically being blamed for the deaths at this point.
Oh, basically? Because when he tells his story, the first thing they have is they're like, look, we're not saying you're lying, but if you admit now that you were scared and confused and tell us what really happened, that they died of misadventure, that you were scared, that you we'll be kinder to you. And of course, his response is, no,
that's not what happened.
I saw what happened to them.
Yeah.
A man named Calhoun murdered them. And his response is like, hold up, fam. We don't believe you.
Yeah.
But we got to replace your commanding officer, so we got someone to take care of business until we figure out what we're going to do next.
So Slauson tells them they have a new temporary colonel joining and introduces Colonel Ives as Calhoun walks in full soldier attire, causing Boyd to immediately panic.
And he's cleaned up. His facial hair is shaved nicely. And at that moment, we realize no one who got a good look at Calhoun is still alive, except
Knox.
for our man.
So he tells him that Knox can confirm that that's Calhoun.
Knox didn't get a good look. That's my point.
Yeah.
Knox was drunk and passed out.
Does not recall him, but Knox humors him, saying that if Boyd shot him in the shoulder, the wound would still be there. So they invite Ives in, and he strips his shoulders out, and there are no bullet wounds anyway.
And that's where we establish that it's almost werewolf-like healing of capability.
Yeah.
That's where we really get the sense that it's like, no, it can like literally make you invincible almost. As long as you keep eating, you keep getting stronger.
So Slauson and his troops leave, and Boyd goes to warn Cleves and Martha, but he finds Cleves talking shit about him and that he's crazy and he's the killer. So he's like, well, you've been warned. And then Boyd is out watching Cleves chop some wood, and he has this crazy vision that he goes up to Cleves, hits him with the hammer, and then just starts cutting him open and eating him while Cleves laughs at him.
Yeah, that's the part that like I love that because that's insane. Yeah, he's just laughing and coughing up blood as he's ripping into his flesh.
Yeah.
And it's at that moment that he mentions later on, he keeps mentioning, like, I have these nightmares, these constant nightmares about eating flesh, and it's tormenting me. And that may be because Boyd is not a monster.
No, he's not.
I mean, he's becoming a monster.
Yeah.
But he himself is not a monster. And I don't think we can say so about Calhoun.
Not just yet. No.
No. Calhoun is a monster. He is. He's a human monster.
He is very, very scary in this. So Boyd has the crazy vision, and the next we see the five of them all in the cabin parlor, just enjoying the evening. You got Calhoun reading a book. Knox and Cleves are doing are playing chess, and Martha's knitting, and Boyd is just watching Calhoun, and he's almost falling asleep.
Yeah. He's starting to nod off. He reminds me of a cat.
Yeah. So Ives shuts his book really quick, getting everybody on the alert as Boyd rises up with a knife, and Martha draws a knife on Boyd, and Calhoun's like, all right, I think everybody, it's time for bed.
Yeah, I think everyone might be a bit tired.
So later that night, Boyd sits outside of Calhoun's hut with a knife, and he comes out and he tells Boyd that, I found Reich's body. You didn't finish him off. I get it. He was tough, but a good soldier ought to be.
Yeah, he's so Hannibal Lecter-y now.
Yeah, he's smoking his cigarette, and he's just out, just telling him everything, and he talks about how he learned the legend of the Wendigo from an Indian scout, and hearing it, he just had to try it. So at first, he ate the Indian scout.
Yeah, which, I mean, his monologues are incredible in this film.
So good. So that confirms that he was right, and then he admits that he has eaten 5 men in 3 months, and he calls Boyd out on being a coward because he knows the power, he knows what it can do, but he's still not doing it. So hearing this, Boyd takes a swipe at Ives, cutting his hand open, and Ives tries to entice him with the scent of blood, reminding him of the smell and the taste and how you would feel better. Boyd refuses, but he goes to attack Ives, but Martha comes up, draws a knife to his throat, and Knox puts Boyd under arrest.
Yeah, and of course all of this because perfectly Calhoun is making Boyd look like he's the psychopath who was killing and eating people.
Yes.
And frankly, since he is a Wendigo, he hasn't eaten since that one time. He looks sickly. He looks unwell. He looks crazy. And on top of that, this man who, as far as everybody's concerned, he never met, he's positive he's met him before.
Yeah.
And it just looks real bad.
It's about to get worse because Knox calls for Martha to go find Cleves. She can't find Cleves, so she goes into the barn and finds all the animals slaughtered. And we're talking heads hanging up, torsos hanging up, so somebody has intentionally got in there, slaughtered, and has eaten some of these animals.
And animals in this context, I mean, we're talking horses, oxen, we're talking animals that would have allowed them to go get help quickly and efficiently, because there's a big difference between riding a horse out to get help and hiking for 3 days.
Yeah.
Big difference.
So she runs to tell Knox, and as she walks up to the window, she's calling to Knox and starts to have some blood fall on her face. That's when she looks up and starts getting terrified because Knox walks out, stands with her, and finds Cleve's body gutted on the roof of the cabin.
And it's an incredible reveal where the blood is dripping onto her face, and she's just so scared by it. She just stands there in shock.
Yes.
And that's when we realize that maybe something else is going on, because Calhoun, I'm going to keep calling him Calhoun because it's confusing that he becomes another character. Calhoun is only one man, and he was mostly just fighting with Boyd all night.
Yeah.
Who killed all these animals? When could he have done it?
Yes.
So now, if I remember correctly, the young lady, what was her name? Martha.
Yeah.
She's got they ask for volunteers.
Yeah.
Who's going to go get help?
Go get Slauson. Go get General Slauson. They want to place Boyd under military arrest.
Yeah. And she volunteers because as a Native woman, she can handle that hike.
She knows the hills
and she knows where she's going.
Yeah.
And frankly, I wouldn't want to be. I think she also just didn't want to be there anymore after her last friend.
Yeah.
She lost her husband. Remember, he was the Native American that was on the trip.
Yep.
And then
brother.
Oh, sorry, brother.
Yep.
Thank you. And then Arquette was her brother's best friend, and then was the one who she leaned into when she was mourning him.
Yeah.
And now he's gone too.
Yep.
So it's like, if I was her, I'd be like, I'm going to go get him, and then I'm also not going to come back.
Yeah.
So now we have 2 cannibals, one evil and one neutral.
Yeah.
And this poor, drunk, good enough doctor.
I'm sure he'll fare well.
I'm sure he's going to do very well as they have Boyd tied up.
Yes.
Awaiting, because they can't do anything else with him because they're awaiting military prison.
So you got Boyd, Ives, and Major Knox are all together now, and we see that Ives is preparing a stew as he calls to Boyd calls to Knox because he wants to know he's still alive.
Ives is Calhoun.
Yes, Ives is Calhoun. Knox questions Ives about his missing saber because he notices in the parlor that one of his sabers is missing above the fireplace.
And before he mentions that, he says one of my favorite little moments. He asks Calhoun if he could help him make the stew.
Yes.
And Calhoun says, I'm sure you'll contribute to it at some point later.
We'll take your contribution at some point.
You'll contribute at some point.
So Ives states that he hasn't seen it and perhaps later that you might contribute to the soup. Boyd asks Ives when did he have time to kill Cleves and the horses, which pisses Knox off, so he goes to shut the door on Boyd. While he does that, we see somebody with his saber slip behind. And then Knox comes back into the room. He's like, well, who opened that door? He goes to shut the door, and we hear Knox go, oh, and then slice. Major Knox is dead. Boyd hears the body hit, and the door opens, and what do you know? It's Colonel Hart.
Colonel Hart, Jeffrey Jones, not dead, but he looks... he looks much better than a dead man.
He walks in, he's like, hi, Boyd.
Yeah.
Covered in blood.
What a great twist. And what a great way to keep us on our toes as an audience, because I would not have seen that coming in the least
I remember
bit.
the first time I watched this, I was like, holy shit, I did not expect that.
Yeah, and he's a little bloody.
Yeah.
He's a little worse for wear, but obviously, like we said before, his guts were spilling out before. So he's doing a lot better than now, and that's when we find out that Calhoun awoke him, feeding him human remains.
Yes, he did.
And
Reich.
And this is when we start to realize that one of the big elements of what Calhoun is doing is actually that he doesn't want to be alone his pursuit of human flesh.
Yeah.
He wants to have cannibal buddies.
Yes.
And he sold Jeffrey Jones's character on the idea of you and me are going to be cannibal buddies.
Yep.
But of course, Jeffrey Jones's reaction is like, I like you, Boyd. Like, I do.
Yeah, I have no intention to kill you. It's tough making friends as a cannibal.
Yeah,
one of his best lines.
It's tough making friends as a cannibal. It's such a good line, but that also makes you realize something again, which is Calhoun is a particularly monstrous Wendigo.
Yeah.
Because even Jeffrey Jones, he's clearly perverted by the whole thing.
He is, absolutely.
Because then in the next scene, they finish the stew with Knox's body.
Stew a la Major Knox.
Yeah, and they're eating it, and it's a big stew with carrots and potatoes.
Well, and before that, he takes Boyd outside because that's when they unveil the plan that because Ives Calhoun unveils that this fort is going to be so busy in spring and summer that we'll have people come through. We're not going to kill all of them. We'll kill selectively. But it's just going to be on the dinner table as soon as winter finishes. And while he's doing this, he's hacking up Knox's body.
And it is a great speech. Thank you. I almost went right over it.
Yeah.
It's a great speech about manifest destiny and all the gold-hungry Americans that have to pass right through here.
Yeah.
And so many of them you never hear from again.
Nope.
So, and I do like how he's trying. He's like, we will kill selectively.
Yeah, we won't kill everybody.
No. We'll kill very selectively. But it's like, they're really trying to sell him on this, like, let's be cannibal bros.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, is the name of your debut album.
Thank you for that.
Coming out in 2025, Interscope Records.
Jesus. But yeah, at this point, too, he also, tells Boyd the plan, and he's like, join us or die. And that's when he stabs Boyd, basically gives him a final death stab. And if he doesn't do anything with these wounds, they're going to kill him.
Yeah. Basically, it's like, that won't kill you. Oh, yeah, he says, that won't kill you. If you eat.
Yeah.
Or was it if you take precautions?
So I think it
was a line like that.
Yeah.
But he was saying if you eat human flesh. Yeah. Basically, now you have no choice. Before you were slowly dying of hunger. Now you are just dying. And the only way out is to take a bite of stew.
Mm-hmm.
And this scene is disgusting and upsetting. And it was one of the ones that got to me a lot as a kid.
I can see that.
And as he's resisting, and as Jeffrey Jones is eating and being so happy that he's going to feel so much better, and Calhoun is just a freaking nutter because Calhoun is a nut job.
Jeffrey Jones has the line, "Isn't this nice?" Just
the
three of them sitting.
Yeah, no, it's the insanity is palpable.
Yeah,
and at that moment, after a lot of
we see that Boyd's wound is just bleeding
No,
profusely.
he's going to die.
He's coughing up blood, and he's just got this thing of stew in front of him, and he gives in, and he just starts eating the stew, and, he's gulping it down, and then we cut to a couple of days later, he's completely fine.
He's looking very well. And that's the moment when the movie really became hard for a young Henrique watching in his little living room
I could see that
in suburban Ohio.
So we see Boyd watching Ives and Hart prepare for General Slosson's arrival because Martha's bringing him back today. Hart visits Boyd, asking him if he's to be trusted because they need to set him free so that they can, get Ives and everybody under control so they can take the fort. And he goes, can you be trusted? And Boyd goes, of course not. So then we see Boyd being led out, and Ives is watching from the watchtower for General Slosson's wagon. Hart goes into his old office with Boyd, unlocks his cuff, and he comments on all his missing books and how they all related to the same thing, of happiness and how to achieve it.
Yeah, and to which Boyd responds, Aristotle's search was for truth.
Yeah.
Which I just love that line. Like, for some reason, he knows, it was Aristotle. Yeah. He knows Aristotle. Because he was like, because I got confused for a second because they quote Nietzsche at the beginning.
Yeah.
He's like Aristotle's search for truth.
And this is also a great scene, too, to demonstrate the change in Jeffrey Jones' character because we talked about in the beginning he was eating the walnuts and he was having trouble crushing them so that he started using books to do it. Now he's just
crunch them with his hand. He's not fisting them, David.
Crushing them with his fists.
Please, no, David.
So he's crushing these walnuts.
That needs to be the first Do You Even movie t-shirt.
Oh my God.
Just Dave fisting them.
So he's crushing these walnuts, and that's when he breaks down and tells Boyd that this is not how he wants to live. He does not want to do this anymore.
He's already figured it out. It didn't take him long to realize he's not a monster.
He's not a monster. So he frees Boyd because Boyd says, I'm going to go kill Calhoun. So he frees Boyd and he goes, Boyd, I have one more request. Kill me. And Boyd wastes no time walking up to the window that he's looking out of right as Ives is coming off the watchtower, and he just slices Jones' throat. Blood sprays on the window. Yeah. Calhoun walks up and sees this, and you even see, I love, because Jeffrey Jones gives him one last look that's like, you're not going to win.
Yeah. No, and that's why I love, one of the things I love is that, like, I don't know if Jeffrey Jones, the character, I don't know if he really was on board at first and then realized the reality, or if he always just wanted to have an upper hand on Calhoun. I don't know.
He was just lonely because that is one of the biggest things that he throws in the first part of the movie is just this is a place where not a lot of people come. We make our own company here. It's good to have company.
Well, when he says like you search for truth, he's like, well, I did everything right searching for truth, and I ended up here.
Yeah.
which is a really fair point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now it is the final battle as Ives catches Boyd in the parlor unsheathing one of the sabers, and the two go into a vicious battle. They cut each other a little bit, and then Ives, Calhoun, disappears outside, and Boyd is looking for him. Suddenly a bell rings, which takes him over to the barn, so he goes into the barn, and that's when there's just stabbing implements galore all over the place.
We are not going to be able to describe this fight properly.
Calhoun drops from the ceiling at one point, and they get into a huge fight, so he picks up a pitchfork, and he jabs Calhoun in the side, and then he tries to get him in the face, and he holds it off. And that's when they just start throwing each other all over the room, stabbing each other.
They're just slamming into things, cutting, stabbing. And
it finally gets to one point where Boyd draws him over to one section of the barn, which he has the roof collapse on, so he's buried him, and he wanders off. And then he calls him over one more time, and they go into this other section of the barn. They're throwing each other against the wall, and Calhoun gets thrown into one part of this room where Boyd draws him into, and that's when he lands onto a bear trap that he activates on both of them.
They land together.
Yes.
They're gripping each other. He drops him onto this gargantuan grizzly bear trap. And remember, grizzlies are out that way.
Yeah.
So they'd have the biggest bear traps in the world. And when he falls on it together, he just starts hitting it and hitting it to make it snap.
Yes.
And it snaps on both of them.
Snaps on both of them.
What an ending to the fight. And as they are dying, as they are suffering and choking blood, Calhoun immediately goes, "If you die first,
I'm definitely eating you.
I'm definitely eating you." And he's like, "But the question is,
if I die, what are you going to do?"
Yeah, what are you going to do? And that's when, and at that moment, you hope, as the audience, that Boyd will die.
Yeah.
And let the Wendigo die.
Yeah.
But there's a little poison pill in this mess.
By this point, General Slauson and Martha have returned to the fort, and they can't find anybody, of course, so they're searching around. And Slauson just happens to notice the pot on the stove and goes over and just starts taking a couple sips out of it and really, really likes that soup.
Yeah, and it's probably still stew a la Knox.
Yeah, stew a la Knox.
Maybe even somebody else. Oh, and
probably Cleves, yeah.
At one point when we were watching it, when he was stirring, you see like a big rib bone.
Yeah.
And you were like, "Man, look at that rib bone." And I was like, "David, that's how you make broth."
It. Oh, I know, bone broth. We make it all the time.
It was just funny, though. Like, "David, that's how you make a soup." And then I was like, ugh.
So in his dying breaths, Calhoun is going, "Live or die, live or die." And then suddenly he gets to that last one and goes, ah. Just at this point, Martha peeks into the barn, sees both Boyd and Calhoun have passed, closes the barn, and just quietly backs away outside of the fort. And that, my friends...
yeah, she leaves. She's donezo.
Ditches. And that, my friends, is 1999's Ravenous.
A phenomenal film worth revisiting, especially in the cold, hungry winter months.
Yes.
When you find yourself only with a can of Spam and a Blu Ray player.
This is what you should have brought to your cabin.
You know? I mean, maybe. I wish there are some good ones out there, but I wish there were more really good Wendigo movies.
Yeah.
There are a couple.
Feston's Wendigo is really good.
I liked it, but I wish there was one that was a little more like, what was that one we saw? Antlers?
Yeah, Antlers.
Antlers was pretty good.
Yeah. Bleak.
I want one that's
it's bleak.
I want one that's like balls to the walls, but subtle enough to be scary.
I could do, yeah.
So not Frostbiter.
No, not Frostbiter.
Although Frostbiter is fun.
Welcome to the Wendigo Film Podcast.
I mean, I wish there were enough Wendigo films to talk about. I would do Wendigo Wednesday. You know,
God.
We could do Wendigo Week.
Wendigo Week.
But no, I enjoyed this one. I think that the Wendigo references it's subtle, it's minor. It's not like this is a movie about Algonquin folklore or something. And I love this movie. I love the style, but I really love that the characters got to have a choice.
Yeah.
And that's when you realize that the Wendigo only opens the door to being a monster.
Yeah.
But if you are a monster, you'll run through it as fast as you can.
Exactly.
Let alone the fact that he sought it out, but just the fact that he was running to it. Jeffrey Jones's character thought he wanted it. When he saw the reality, he didn't want it. Boyd thought in one moment of desperation he wanted it and never took that desperation never let that
took it.
desperation bring him there again.
No, he didn't.
because as he drank the soup, he only did that so he could stop Calhoun.
So he could survive, and
Well,
stop him.
No, he was only alive for one purpose. And that was to stop them from killing the innocent people passing through that fort.
Which brings him full circle because then he wasn't a coward because he could have died. And that's what I also love.
Another great point.
You have the opening of him being a coward and he wins, but in this sense, he's not a coward and he wins.
Originally, he sneaks up on the enemy because they would never expect him to pop up from a pile of dead bodies, stab someone, and then gets ready to shoot somebody. So he takes it from this was the the Mexican-American War. But this time around, he faces it head on. He sacrifices a lot, including his own life, but not just his own life, but kind of in a way his soul.
And his reputation, because he's going to be blamed for these murders. There's no way he's not going to be.
I don't know if anybody will be able to figure out what the hell happened at that point. But
yeah.
I mean, because just explaining Jeffrey Jones's character still being alive would be a little hard.
That is true.
I mean, who cares about his reputation? My point is that, like, his soul, metaphorically, because he had to eat the flesh twice.
Yeah.
But he did it for a good
cause.
So
to
I agree.
Stop evil.
So my point is, I agree wholeheartedly. The idea of him being a coward at the beginning, and by the end of this, he's kind of the biggest hero there is.
Yeah.
I love.
No, it's awesome.
I really love how it comes full circle. Ravenous is a really fun one.
It is.
And so considering how phenomenal the movie is, I mean, it must have just lines around the block in the theaters, right?
So it opened on March 19th of 1999 at 18th in the box office. Grossing over 18th. Grossing over just $2 million against its $12 million budget.
Friends, that doesn't mean $2 million that weekend.
No.
He means $2 million in its entire theatrical run.
Yep.
And it was like a Fox 2000 movie,
Fox 2000,
which, listen, whether it's movies or pro wrestling, if you add 2000 or new to an old name everybody knows. It ain't going to work.
No.
It's going to go poorly. And I think that this was Fox kind of dipping their toes in a different kind of concept, because they would always do, they had Fox Searchlight. They had all these different concepts and labels and stuff like that. But this, I can only guess based on looking at the original poster that they had no clue what they had. They had no idea how to market it, yet for some reason they felt fine spending $12 million on it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that blows my mind is it's like, you spent $12 million on it, which means logic dictates you probably spent $10 million marketing it. Mm-hmm. That was the best you could come up with.
Yeah.
But and you said it came out in March?
March 19th of 1999.
So it wasn't even dumped in January.
Was not dumped. Was not dumped.
I mean, it's dumped a little for not being out in the summer, but still. Yeah, that's a shame. That really is.
Would you like to know some more fun facts?
I don't think they're going to be fun.
They're not
go
fun
ahead.
at all.
Yeah. And wait, David, don't call them fun facts. Call them tasty tidbits.
Tasty tidbits.
Yeah.
There we go. So this was John Spencer's last film. He played General Slauson. Between its release, he died of a heart attack in December of December 5th of 1999.
Yeah, super fun facts there,
Shut up.
Dave.
It takes 25 minutes for Boyd to utter his first sentence in the film, because that's when he's talking to Jones.
Yeah, that's true.
Very loosely inspired by the Donner Party of 1847, even though the Ives backstory is very similar to Alfred Packer.
It is kind of similar to Alfred Packer.
Yeah. The original ending was supposed to take place on the roof of burning cabins, but it was scrapped as Pearce and Carlyle figured out at this point they just wanted to beat the hell out of each other in the story.
Okay, that's fair enough. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, it is like this movie is like the fight version of like a romantic comedy, just cock teasing you all the way through the film. Like the entire movie, you're just waiting for them to finally show down. Because remember, the first time they have their showdown, he jumps and runs.
Yes,
so.
and that showdown, production ran out of fake blood.
Oh my God, I believe that.
So Guy Pearce, a well-known vegan, had to do several takes of him eating the lamb stew, which was prepared by set caterers. Very delicious stew, from what Robert Carlyle said. So he would take a bite and then immediately spit it out when Antonia Bird called cut.
I mean, that's not that uncommon on movies anyway, because people don't. You have no idea how many takes you have to do on some of these movies.
Yeah, people eating food in movies is crazy.
So often they're just spitting food out take after take, especially actresses, because they're watching what they eat very closely. So, I mean, that's not shocking to me, but I am surprised he was a vegan in 1999. There
Yeah.
weren't that many vegans yet.
Not yet, no.
Yeah.
So the final thought for Ravenous, I am going to give this a rent it. This is a very entertaining horror film. May not be for everybody because of the cannibal aspects to it. I mean, it's a bleak film with a lot of dark humor too.
It's not a family meal necessarily.
No. But to me, this is a great adventure horror with beautiful scenery, fun characters, and no one's safe in this movie, which builds up the tension even more.
Yeah, it keeps you guessing massively.
Yeah, and the isolation aspect drives it forward because you're isolated with a monster you know, and they know that you know, and this is just an underrated late 90s gem to me.
But do you know that they know that you know?
Oh, they know that I know that you know. So you know how we always like to end the show with a recommendation? I've got two this time around.
Okay.
I went
hit
with
us.
horror westerns, and the obvious one first, 2015's Bone Tomahawk.
Okay, I could see that.
In the dying days of the Old West, an elderly sheriff and his posse set out to rescue their town's doctor from a cannibalistic cave dwellers. This is a very good movie, but it's a slow burn, and it is very gruesome, extremely gruesome.
Yeah, you earn the pain that movie leaves you in.
Yeah. And the other one I'm going to give is one I'm dying to show you, and we need to do it sometime soon. Curse of the Undead from 1959. This is a black and white horror western. It says, while Melody is claiming the lives of young women in Western Town, a sinister gunslinger for hire, Drake Roby is really a vampire, and it's up to Preacher Dan to save his town and his girlfriend.
I would like to watch it.
It's fantastic. It was one I discovered from Letterboxd. I saw a couple people review it, and that's how I found out about it a couple years ago. Got a Kino Blu Ray, and it is phenomenal.
Well, I'm about to blow your mind with my recommendations.
Go ahead.
No, you're not going to guess them.
Okay.
You're never going to guess these.
Okay.
Okay, so number one, I'm going to go horror western.
Mm-hmm.
Five Bloody Graves by Al Adamson.
Good call.
I really like Five Bloody Graves.
Yeah.
It is cheesy as hell. Al Adamson's movies are not high quality,
Yeah.
but they are a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It is a nasty, brutal little western.
Yes, it is.
And it is, it's charming in its way.
Yeah.
And then my other recommendation, and I really debated this, and that's why I know Dave's going to be like, what the fuck?
Go.
But Bones and All.
That's a good call.
Because Bones
That's a
and
good
All
call.
made me queasy with the cannibalism.
Yeah.
Although the romantic element is however you feel about it. I liked it.
I liked it.
So Bones and All is one that I think would be a really good pairing with this. It's a lot more highbrow, and literally I couldn't have gone more lowbrow and then highbrow with my recommendations. But I think if you want a movie about cannibalism, and especially about cannibalism as a metaphor for a desire to consume and a desire to take and to give and all of that movie, I think Ravenous makes some really great points, and I think that Bones and All makes some really great points. So my recommendation is the artsy fartsy Bones and All. I really stand by that.
Bones and All was a good time.
I enjoyed it fine. I don't know if I'd watch it a million times.
I probably wouldn't revisit it.
So that all being said, I call it a rent it.
Yeah, rent it for me too.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, if you're a horror nut, if you're a 90s movie lover, because it's a 2000 movie, it's really a 90s movie.
Yeah.
If you're a person who loves unsettling movies, then it's definitely for your collection.
Yes.
But as a common moviegoer, this is definitely an excellent curiosity to watch and give a fair shake to.
And it's, we can't say this now because you've listened to the show, but if you can go in as blind as possible, that will be the best time you have with it.
Yeah, and usually people have seen the movie, or maybe they haven't. But you know what? I found that a lot of people value spoilers way less than we do.
Yeah.
I have really noticed that. Did you know that they did that whole study about trailers? People were like, why do they put all the best stuff in trailers? They're like, well, because when they show people trailers and then show them the movie, they respond most positivily to what they saw in the trailer being in the movie.
Yeah.
And when I heard that, I was like, oh, because you know me, like, you'll be like, bro, did you see the trailer for blank movie? And I'll be like, Dave, I already said I'd go see it.
Yeah.
That's I'll literally be like, I don't care. I'm already going to go see it.
I don't send you trailers anymore because either you A, won't watch them, or B, will just catch them in the theater most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, occasionally if there's something crazy we've been waiting for, but if it's just like some movie we heard about and we already said like we're going to go see it, I'll be like, I might watch the trailer. I don't care. Like, I'm already going to go see it no matter what the trailer is.
Well, and I mean, it brings up a good point too, that how many times have we seen trailers for movies and we're just like, that looks like crap. We go and see the movie and the trailer did it the worst injustice possible.
I mean, Taken is a great example of that. Taken had the crappiest marketing ever. I'm so glad the movie caught on anyway.
Yeah.
So, Ravenous, my friends, if you need something to chew on.
Yes.
God, there are never enough cannibal
Something
jokes.
to warm you up and just get, all the good feelies of the winter and have, a big bowl of stew. That's the way to do it.
You worry me.
Yeah, it should.
All right, so before we get out of here, again, huge thank you to everybody for your comments on social media, on YouTube, on Instagram, and everything about my buddy Chicano. I really appreciate it. It's still pretty fresh as we're recording this. It's only been a week, and my head is still spinning. Big love to Dave. Last week when that all had happened, he was like, "Hey man, I understand you want to do the show or whatever," and I was like, "Yeah." And you were like, "But if you want, I'll come over." And we came over and we went and saw a movie and just hung out for a minute. And I was a fucking wreck. So I'm just, thank you, man.
No worries, brother.
I appreciate it a whole hell of a lot. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure you're subscribed and like and comment. I know it's so annoying, but if you're a friend of mine, if you're a friend of Dave, if you're a friend of the show or what have you, if you leave a like and you leave a comment, it'll make our video more discoverable.
It will.
And I know it's like, it's for the algorithm. Welcome to the world we're in.
Yeah.
And share it with a movie-loving friend if you love it. And also, Dave's been telling me we've had some interesting development over on TikTok and TikTok, patty whack, give a dog a bone. But yeah, and if you want to get a hold of us, if you want to recommend a movie, we have a lot of movies on the docket.
Yes, we do.
There are 52 weeks in a year, which means we're going to be reviewing at least roughly 52 movies in a year.
Yeah.
It may be more, it may be less, it depends. We're open to suggestions. We're also open to things where it's not solely one film. We're open to verses potentially. We're open to series reviews.
Yeah.
We're really just kind of still figuring out what all we want to do on the show, but at the end of the day, it's really whatever we want.
Yeah,
is the best part.
We bullshit well. Give us a topic and we can do it.
And if you love what we're doing and you want to support it directly, go to doyouevenmovie.com and click on Patreon. For $3 a month, you get nearly, aside from when a tragedy happens, you get nearly every episode 4 days early in video on Patreon. And you get a lot of other bonus stuff, weekly spooky bonuses, photography bonuses, lots of cool stuff. And if you want to write to us, comment down below, or you can email us. If you're listening to the podcast, you can email us at doyouevenmoviepod@gmail.com. We read every email we get, and we are dying to hear from you.
Yes, we are. And don't forget to follow us on TikTok at Do You Movie Pod. You can also follow us on Instagram and X at those as well. Like Enrique said, we've got a great collection of clips on there right now, but we will always put some more up for you if you got some influence or some ideas for us.
Yeah, we'll try at least. So until next time, guys, we'll see you next Tuesday on...
Every time.
On Do You... Well, it's true.
I know, it is.
On Do You Even Movie.
We'll see you.
Bye.